SANDHAN, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
We are talking about Sir Joseph Addison's critic, essayist, writer, philosopher, guide, poet. We have to discuss about his writing, about his effect on the political situation, his effect on the social life of the 17th century, how Joseph Addison influenced the people of his time. We will talk about Sir Joseph Addison's poem and drama and essays step by step. Sir Joseph Addison is very famous for his notable essays. First, let us know about his birth, where he took place, in which time. Let us think about the political situation of the 17th century British London and the surrounding of London, and the political situation and the social situation and the economic situation of his time. Joseph Addison and Steele both met together and they started writing papers, writing newspapers, writing column for their newspapers on several topics. Sir Joseph Addison, born in Lancashire in Millstone, Wiltshire, he was appointed Dean of Lichfield. Addison family moved into the Cathedral Close. Sir Joseph Addison, based in London, he started his career as an essay writer instantly from studying in Oxford. Joseph Addison was the student of Oxford University in Britain. He passed his youth in somewhat secumber position in the place of his native, where he worked together. Now let us think about Addison's essays. Which essays he has written? So students, please note down his major essays. Essay number 1, The Choice of Hercules. Essay number 2, Jupiter and the Definities. Essay number 3, The Social Concert. Essay number 4, Adventures of a Shilling. 5, Frozen Voices. 6, The Spectator's Account of Himself. Essay number 7, Uses of the Spectator. 8, Ghost Stories. Essay number 9, Opera Lions. Essay number 10, Reflections in Westminster Abbey. Essay number 11, Remarks on the English by Indian Kings. It is very surprising that Addison used Indian words for his particular essay. Essay number 12, Friendship. Essay number 13, Dream of a Picture Gallery. Essay 14, Sir Roger at Home. So, dear students, what do you think about Sir Roger? Sir Roger is a character invented by Sir Joseph Addison, and with the help of Sir Richard Steele, Joseph developed the character of Sir Sir Roger. So 2 essays he wrote on Sir Roger. Sir Roger at home, and essay number 15, Sir Roger at church. So he describes Sir Roger first at home, and then he describes Sir Roger at the church. In both the situation, Addison describes about the social position, the economic position, rituals, customs of the people of that time. So in Sir Roger, we have all the reflections of the social surrounding of that particular period in Britain. Then 16th number, Mischief of a Party Spirit. Then essay number 17, The Vision of Mirza. Mirza is a word, it gives us the reflection of Islamic culture, because Mirza, the word is used in Islamic poem, in culture of Islam. Then essay number 18, Good Nature. Dear students, please note down all these essays of Sir Richard and Sir Joseph Addison. Then essay number 19, Good Nature. Then essay number 20, Literary Criticism. So literary criticism, the term itself shows that Joseph Addison was aware of criticism. Joseph Addison was aware of what is critic, or what are the reflections of criticism, what are the present trends of criticism, sort of comparative criticism. Here I have made a little comparison between Addison and Steele. See, you can see Addison born on 1st May 1672 in London. Then if we talk about Steele born on March 1672 in Dublin. Dublin is a place in Ireland. Then Addison died on 17th June 1719. Steele died on 1st September 1729. Then Addison wrote number of essays, contributed with Steele in The Spectator and The Tatler. In The Spectator, he wrote around 42 essays. Dear students, please note that Addison's contribution in The Spectator and The Tatler is less than Sir Richard Steele, but Addison is more intelligent. I mean, we cannot compare in that way, but Addison is strict about rules, regulation, about his discipline in his writing, while Steele is little bit introvert, sensitive, confined to feelings. So there is a difference between the writing of Addison and Steele. Then total number of essays written is 274. In The Spectator, it is daily newspaper started by Addison and Steele. Then wrote poem for John Dryden. It is very interesting fact that Addison was interested in the character of John Dryden. John Dryden was very famous essayist, dramatist, critic and poet of that time. So Addison wrote one beautiful poem on John Dryden. So John Dryden, the poem itself create lot of criticism on that time. Then Addison met Swift in Ireland. It is very interesting that Addison was in touch with Swift. As we know Swift is very famous for his satire. Swift's Gulliver's Travels is very famous satire. His Gulliver's Travels gives us the political situation of that time. So Swift, but the change of nature is very pertinent among them. Swift is more strict, more discipline minded than Joseph Edison. So now let us go ahead of the comparison of Edison and Still. Then Swift met Edison in Ireland. Then Edison met Still in Ireland in 1709. Then important essays of Edison is 24. It is considered that Swift was the part of Edison's writing, but Edison wrote many essays in his contribution with the Spectator and the Tatler. Then politics and literature, both Swift and Still were connected with politics and literature. If we see the characteristics of Still, he was born in March 1672. Then the Spectator, the total essays are numbered with 555, means 555 essays were there, in which number of essays written by Still was 236. He also combined literature with politics. So Swift and Edison, Still and Edison, they have one common thing. All the three writers, they have one common thing, that all of them added literature and politics. Swift, Edison and Still all were working for the political party of that time. Two political parties of that time were very famous, the Whigs and the Tory. Both Edison and Still were working for the Whigs and the Tory. All political parties of that time, in them two parties were very famous, the Whigs and the Tory. So the comparison now we are finishing. Now let us go ahead with the major essays of Edison. Now we finished that the name of the essay, The Vision of Mirza. Essay number 18 is next essay, Good Nature. Dear students, please note down all major essays of Edison. Then next essay of Edison was Good Nature, continued in two parts for regular base he wrote. Then essay number 20 is Literary Criticism. As we talked that criticism was a new concept, but Edison was very much interested in criticism. Then essay number 21, Gesture in Oratory. It was a very nice subject Edison chose, oratory. He was very much interested in show business, in the sense that in Britain on that time, coffee houses were very famous. People come, people meet, people discuss on many intellectual things, many intellectual topics. So Edison was under the influence of the Pope, or the writer Alexander Pope of 18th century. That intellectual discussion was going on in the time of 18th century. So the Gesture in Oratory is a next essay by Edison. Then 22, Pleasures of Imagination. Here Edison talks about imagination. What is imagination? The definition of imagination, how it helps to poet, to a writer, how imagination is useful in our day-to-day life. Then lesson number 23rd, wisdom and riches, and lesson number 24, death of Sir Roger. As we know, Sir Roger is a character, the character was invented by Sir Addison and developed by Still. So the character speaks less, but by his gestures we understand that Sir Roger is speaking. Sir Roger is saying something to all of us. So Sir Roger is a character invented on the philosophy of church of that time. So Sir Joseph Addison, in his essay on Sir Roger at the church, is very interesting in the form of essay. Now let us first think how Addison passed his childhood, how Addison passed his youth, why he started writing essays, what were the political situation of that time, what were social condition of that time. So first think about Addison and his young period. As we know, in Britain, Oxford and Cambridge were the main universities for study. So both Addison and Still were the graduates. They were studying together in Oxford University. Both met and they thought that something should be done for the people of that time. So first, Addison's first step of fame was taken when a young Oxford student dedicated a poem to Dryden. Dryden was very famous on that time. We know that Dryden has made a statement. It is not enough that Aristotle had said so. If Aristotle had seen our age, he might have changed his writing. He might have changed his mind. Dryden in literary biographia, Dryden in his criticism, even challenged the authority of Aristotle. He will not bow down to Aristotle. So he challenges Aristotle in the sense that it is not enough that Aristotle had said so. What is the meaning of this? That we should not bow down, we should not obey in every matters what Aristotle had said. We should have our own thinking on every part of our literary writing. So this was the impression of Dryden on that time. Dryden was more famous for his essays, for his critical aptitude, and for his critical writing of that time. In fact, he started comparative criticism writing of that time. So the poem of Addison on Dryden gave a lot of fame to Addison. People thought that this man has got the talent to do something. So for this young man Addison, his pen would be valuable possession for the Whig party. Addison was working for Whig party indirectly, not directly, but he liked the thinking of, the policy of, the leadership of Whig party of that time. So Montague, the main leader of Whig party, thought that this intelligent young person is having a good pen, means he writes very well. So he thought to use his training, his writing. So he gave him pension on that time, £300 for a year. So it was a large amount of that particular time, 300 pound for 1 year. So it was a good fortune for Edison, and in this pension he was given the thing that he will have to travel in foreign countries. He will have to develop the tricks, develop the knowledge of all the foreign countries in which he was traveling. So he traveled to Italy, Germany, Switzerland, Austria and Holland. As we know, Italy was very famous for literature. We have sonnet form from Italy. So we know that many Italian writers, Italy and Greece were the main literature people of that time. So Edison went and visited all these countries. He got lot of knowledge in particular phase, but Edison was not fortunate. He traveled for 4 years. He enjoyed that pension of pound 300 for the year. He enjoyed this traveling, but unfortunately his pension was closed due to the victory of William III was died on that time. So due to the death of William III, the lady who was ruling of that country, Halifax, did not favor Edison. She stopped the pension of Edison. So pension was stopped. Now the age of Edison was 30 years when his pension was stopped. But he had read widely, thought much, because he visited Italy. Italy was very famous for literature and literary people. So now one more friend of Edison came to his help. His name was Jacob Tonson. Jacob Tonson was a publisher actually. He helped on this particular time for Joseph Edison. Jacob Tonson was running a club. As we know that clubs and coffee houses and theatre were very famous of that particular time in Britain. So Jacob Tonson was founded a club. The name of the club was Kit Kat Club. As we know, Kit Kat is a word we use for this particular chocolate, particular sweet. But the word Kit Kat was mentioned in this particular time, that a club was running on the name of Kit Kat. So Tonson invited Edison to join the club, and there were 39 members of that club who were discussing literature, discussing the position of Britain of that time, discussing on very intellectual topics of that particular phase. So Edison was invited to join the club. Edison was very happy because he wanted to have such type of atmosphere, intellectual atmosphere, in which his talent would be developed. So Edison joined Kit Kat Club with 39 members. Then Edison was given work of writing, in which he was very much interested. On that time, as we know that Edison was working for Whig party. On that time, one ruler, the victory of Blenheim, the ruler of that time, he got victory. So Tonson and other club members told Edison that let us celebrate the victory of Blenheim, but not to celebrate victory not in same mood. I mean, not champagne, not in drinking, but enjoy victory through writing, through verse. So the club members told Edison to write something, to write some good verse to celebrate that victory. And Edison wrote the poem, the campaign, in the celebration of that victory of that ruler. So his first poem was dedicated to the ruler of that time, to the leader of that time, to celebrate the victory of his time. So he wrote that poem, and that poem was given due applause by the people of that time, the writers of that time. Edison then interesting factor take place in the life of Edison, as he met Jonathan Swift. As we talk about that, these three writers, Edison, Steele, and Swift, all mixed literature with their writing. All were political workers. For Edison and Steele were working for Whig party, but Swift was not with them, in the sense that Swift was in the opponent party. He was working for the Tory party. So Swift liked the introduction of Edison, but by heart he was not so happy with the entrance of Edison in his life. But Edison was smart. He wrote a poem. He wrote a book actually on Italy and dedicated that book to Swift. He dedicated the whole book to Swift to study Italy and Italian literature. But as we know that Swift, the nature of the poet Swift, the writer Swift, was very different. What he says to Edison, let us enjoy this word. Swift says to his friend Stella, called at the coffee house where I had not been for a week, and talked coldly with Mr. Edison. See what he says, I talked coldly, not in a casual manner, not in an intimate manner, but coldly with Edison. Means he was not happy with him. All our friendship and dearness are off. We are civil acquaintances. Take words of course of when we shall meet. That's all. It is not ought. So the word that's all is used. That means Swift was no more interested with the friendship of Edison. So this is the primary age, the age of 30 to 35 of Swift, of Edison. So after the breaking relation of Swift and Edison, now Edison still thought what to do. Now in that particular time, Steele and Edison met. The meeting of Steele and Edison gave birth to the Tatler. Tatler was the essay form, the papers, the newspaper series started by these two writers. It is unusual event in the history of English literature that two great writers met, worked for many years, and they started one newspaper, many newspapers, and sort of essay writing and journals for particular period of more than 30 years or 20 to 30 years span. They worked together. So entry of the newspaper, the journal, Tatler, changed the life of Edison. Now let us think why the Tatler took place. What is the reason why Edison has to start this particular column or particular newspaper or particular journal, the Tatler and the Spectator? What is the reason? As we know, Edison went in many countries and he traveled a lot, he thought a lot, he knew the literary trends of that foreign country, then he thought that something should be done for the people of Britain. What are the reasons? What was the political situation? What was the social condition of that time? Why Addison became serious about starting such journal, starting such newspaper? Why? There are 3-4 reasons, very serious reason. Students, please note why these 2 essay newspapers took place. What are the reasons? And we will think on the point of view of Addison, because Addison, it is my personal view, but Addison was more result oriented mind, was more of journal oriented mind, critical mind. So he thought that the politicians were forgetting their country in their zeal for party. Number 1, the politicians were not devoted to their countries, to their people. So we know that this was the situation, because Steele and Addison both were affected by the political disturbance, selfishness of politicians of that time. It was on a last stand. It was worst position. I mean, the politics and the politicians, still we see in India also. What is the position of politics and politicians? So, the first reason, politicians were not with the people, with the right of the people. Secondly, he saw a court which no longer encouraged art and letters. Now, one side the political pictures, other side court, church, people of religions in the people, people and religion. So 2 important factors which influence the people, the politicians and the church, not in a good position. So second solid reason for starting the Tatler was politician and the church people. Now third, he saw town folks scoffing at the country people and the country squires clinging all the more obstinately to their old ways. Now town and city, rural and urban. So town people were not very happy with city people, with regional people, rural people. So no understanding of village and city people. The thinking of village and city people was not good of that time. This was third reason. He saw the town folks as and the middle class arising, which had no guiding ideas on morals or literatures or manners. This is main reason, dear friends. We are thinking on a very critical way. Why they started the Statler and Spectator and the Tatler? Why? The fourth important reason, that middle class was arising. Rule of middle class. Middle class was major in number. So middle class was arising, but they are without leaders. Nobody was there to lead them in a proper way, to devote them, to turn them, to make their life in a particular way. So they were without leaders. So reason number 4. He saw women leading aimless lives because no one thought them worth educating. Now friends, as we have seen that why I got this particular aspect of feminism. This is my book, but I am very much interested in the aspect of feminism, especially male writers, what they have thought about women. Feminism was actually the term was invented many years ago, but it influenced Britain, France, Germany, USA, Italy, and most of the major countries of time. So when we talk about feminism, first let us think, what is feminism? Feminism is a word used for the equality of women with men. Women should be given equal status with men. They are, as Mary Wollstonecraft, Betty Friedan, and other women writers, they are talking about feminism, the status of women, their class, their position in this male dominated society. When we think about feminism, we have to think Addison. It is a sort of surprising fact that Addison was also interested in feminism, in the sense that he saw the poor position of women of that time. Women were not given proper understanding. Women were not educated. Women were not given education of that time. Why women should be educated? When they have to work, they have to go for service. When they have to run their houses, why should they be educated? So that particular thinking gave birth to feminism, that women should be educated. Women should have their room of their own. As Mary Wollstonecraft, the British feminist, says that every woman should have her room of her own. She should be educated. She should be in a good economic position. So Addison thought that women of that time were not given education. So if women are not educated, then the whole social surrounding, whole social position will be at chaos. So he thought the position of women. He saw how much a spectator could do by funding a journal in which all these isolated units in the nation might find common interest. So Addison and Steele started the Spectator because due to these 5 reasons, that the rising of middle class, the corrupt politicians, they are not devoted to their countries, the poor position of women, in the sense that they were not educated, they were not given proper guidance for the development of their self. So Addison and Steele started the Spectator and the Tatler. Now, more interestingly, Addison gave a special writing on women education, and he published, then he wrote daily about women's education. He started writing column on women's education. We shall understand better how he went about his task if we notice he catered for his women readers, for there is no doubt that Addison was the founder of Women's Page and the Women's Magazine. Still, with his warm heart and his reverence for women, has led the way in Tatler, but it was Addison who definitely made provision of their taste. So both Steele and Addison are interested in the development of women, in the upliftment of women, that women should be educated, women should be given proper guidance, proper education. But Addison took the initiative with the help of Steele. So he started a special women's page, a special column for women. So he wrote a paper describing the training of young women in exercises of the fan, the different courses being handle your fans. So very, very beautiful, lovely lines wrote Addison on women. Handle your fans, unfurl your fans. Handle your fans. Your fans means your people. People surrounded by you. your brother, father, then your friends, your philosophers, your guides, everyone. Discharge your fans, ground your fans, recover your fans, flutter your fans by the right observation of these few plain words of command. A woman of a tolerable genius who will apply herself diligently to her exercise for the space of but 1/2 year. Handle your fans. Edison says, take care of your fans. Take care of your people. Discharge your fans. Means when you want to say yes, you should say yes. When you want to say no, you must have ability to say no. Handle your relation. Handle your fans. Take care of your fans properly. So he wrote special articles, special pages for women and for women's education. So it affected a great impression of that particular time, because feminism was not very known concept in that time. People thought about women a little, that they should be on the regard of education, they thought that they should be educated, that's all. There is no thinking of equality of women with men, status of women should be improved. This type of thinking was not developed, but Edison started the initiative. So what happened after this? One fashionable lady of that particular time read these pages, this column of Edison on the education of women. Women should be educated. This lady liked the article, so she wrote one beautiful description is given. Friday. Edison described how fashionable ladies would devote their time, how they pass their time in a very useless manner, in fashion, makeup, in the things which are not important for their progress, for their status. So in one of the essays, in one of the columns, Edison described how fashionable women pass their day. Friday, 8 in the morning, abed, read over all Mr. Ford's letters. 10 o'clock, stayed within all day, not at home. From 10 to 12, in conference. So how fashionable ladies start their day, how they pass their day. From this time to this time, they are in the meeting, makeup, then talking, discussion, coffee houses, everything is going on. 1 in the afternoon, called for my flowered handkerchief, worked half a violet leaf in it, head of order, through by my work, read over the remaining part. From 4 to 12, changed my mind, dressed, went abroad and played at crimp till midnight. Then shut myself up in my chamber. So there is one reference of women, how they pass their time in toilets and in makeup, against the mirror and in makeup and the things which are not very important, in gossiping, in talking, in sort of wasting their time. So he described the description of fashionable ladies. Hundreds of women throughout the country who read the copy of the Spectator realized for the first time how empty were their lives, and in a few days Mr. Spectator took the next step. He wrote a paper about women. So when he wrote about the fashionable ladies and about the writing of fashionable ladies and how they are wasting their time, one lady wrote a letter to Edison. Very interesting fact that women were reading his column for them. So one lady wrote a paper about women, and she said, their amusements seem contrived for them rather as they were women than as they are reasonable creatures. The toilet is the great scene of business, and the right adjustment of their hair the principal employment of their lives. Edison wrote, the toilet were their main scene of business. When people go for work to earn something, we would say that, yes, where is Mr. He has gone out for business. But what is the business of women of that time, especially fashionable women? That their toilet were their business, were their employment, the employment of their lives, adjustment to their hair. So they are wasting their time. So in this way, this particular aspect of feminism, education of women, affected a lot. And one lady wrote a letter to Edison when she would like to have her tea and breakfast. Every day she take tea and breakfast. Then one day she was taking her tea. She read this article about fashionable women. So when her maid servant asked for breakfast, she said, let that particular newspaper should come, let that particular journal should come. So she considered breakfast in the form of the Spectator. So she was waiting for the Spectator to come, the newspaper to come, and she got the newspaper, she read it, and with the breakfast she turned in that way. So this was the effect of feminism, about the ideas of Edison of their time of particular phase, that women should be educated. So she was informed that Spectator has come, and you can read it, and you can have the idea of Edison on how he was interested for the development of women. So we can say that Edison was interested in the education of women, that they should be guided properly, they should understand themselves. What is the role of women of that particular time? Why they should be educated? What is the importance of education for women? Now let us think about what Edison want to say about Sir Roger at church. Sir Roger, as we know, was a character developed by Edison. So in that particular essay, Edison described Sir Roger, that Sir Roger is a character invented by Edison about the age of 50 to 60. He was a very, very serious man, very religious minded, but he was full of comic, full of humor. He was surrounded by his servant. He always discussed about God, about religion, about church, as Sir Roger at church described by Edison. What he says, that I am always very pleased with this country Sunday, and think if keeping only the 7th day were only a human institution. My friend Sir Roger, being a good churchman, has beautified the inside of his church with several texts of his own choosing. So what is the role of Sir Roger? Sir Roger was a religious man. He has got many books of religion to read, and he wanted his clergymen, his people near to him, to read that particular books, to read and to discuss about God. He has often told me that at his coming to his estate, he found parishioners very irregular. So after Sir Roger, we should think about the position of church and people's thinking about God. This particular period was very much affected by two political parties, the Whigs and the Tory. So when we are thinking about Sir Roger, we have to think the political situation and the religious situation of that time. So Sir Roger is a very interesting character in that particular the essay, The Spectator and the Tatler. Through Sir Roger, Addison highlight the position of the church, the people of church, the belief of people of that time, and the position of political situation, through which we can understand the two essays in a very particular form. So Addison in that way was a spokesman of his time through the character of Sir Roger. So Sir Roger has become a good name, a nickname of church and politics of that time. I think this is enough about the contribution of Addison in the particular contribution for the writing of essays with Sir Richard Steele. So dear students, please take note of the thinking and philosophy of Addison for starting this two newspapers, two journals, The Spectator and the Tatler.
SANDHAN, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.